Hi, I'm Chris, and in this video we're taking a look at question 16 from section 2 of this year's January SAT. So here we see an absolute value function. It says f of x equals the absolute value of 3x minus 4. And the question is asking us for the value of x for which f of x has the least value. Okay, so two things to make sure that we understand in approaching this question. First of all, what does absolute value mean? So hopefully if you're trying a question that's this difficult, this is question 16 out of 18 questions in that section, which means we are looking at one of the tougher questions in that section. So this is a high-level difficulty question if you're that deep into the math section. Remember, math goes easy to hard. And if you're at one of the later questions in the section, that means you're going to be challenged a little bit. So absolute value means the distance from zero. And that's why absolute value doesn't have positive or negative signs associated with it, but it's always going to be something that appears positive because you're looking at how far away from zero you are. So for example, on a number line, if you're at 2 or negative 2, in terms of absolute value, if you go this way, you're 2 units away from 0. If you go this way, you're still 2 units away. Even though the numerical value of that point is negative 2, the distance is 2 units. You're looking at how far this distance is, regardless of above or below 0. So for absolute value, the smallest possible value that you could have, which is what we need for this question, they want to know the least value for f of x, the smallest result you could ever have for absolute value will be a 0 for the entire absolute value portion of your function. So to solve this, we have to set f of x equal to 0. Now here's the second part of this question where students, I think, sometimes run into a little bit of trouble. When you have absolute value, you need to get used to setting up two separate equations. And occasionally you'll get the same result either way, but I think it's really important in terms of building habits to make sure you set it up as two separate ones for both the positive or negative version of your answer. In this case with 0, it's going to work out to be the same either way. But just to build good habits, I'm going to write it out and show you how it would work with a positive and a negative. So here, for the positive version, you can drop the absolute value symbols. You'll have 0 equals 3x minus 4. For the negative version, if this were some other number, you would have a negative version of the number over here equals negative number equals 3x minus 4. For this particular problem, we can ignore this possibility, but just make sure that we understand conceptually for absolute value, it always has to be two equations. When you're setting it equal to, let's say this was 4 or 10, you would set it equal to a positive 10 and a negative 10, and you would solve each equation separately. For 0, it'll work out the same way either way, and let's go ahead and do that math. We add 4 to the other side, 4 equals 3x, and then we divide by 3, x equals 4/3. Now the last thing I wanted to point out here, and this is really important for grid-in questions, we need to know how to grid in properly. So if you grid this in as 4 over 3, you'll get it right. If you convert it to a decimal, it's fine, but you have to be a little bit more careful and make sure that you max out on the spaces that you use for those decimal spaces when you go to grid in. Because a lot of students on this convert to a decimal in their calculators, and your calculator will give you a 1.3 repeating. So if you enter that as 1.3, that would be marked wrong. But if you enter it as 1.33, that would be marked correct. So it's really important to make sure that if we're dealing with grid-in questions on the SAT, either keep it in fraction form so that you don't have to worry about it and always grid improper fractions rather than mixed numbers, or make sure if you do put it in as a decimal that you max out on the number of decimal spaces that you use on the grid. For more, please feel free to check out our other questions and other videos, and thanks for watching.